So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the TechTalk today. Our topic today is for me, one of the most compelling topics for our future, and this is hydrogen, or let's say the way to a hydrogen economy. In order to achieve our climate goals, and renewable energies are indispensable in all areas of our lives. Green hydrogen plays here, for me, a decisive role in this and is often seen as the carrier of hope for this kind of transformation we are in. The importance of hydrogen technology is a relevant component for the future viability and also, I would say, competitiveness for our industrial location, and this is increasing from day to day. Additionally, we have now this kind of geopolitical changes. We have a war in Ukraine, and we see additional focus and pressure on the hydrogen technology as a replacement for natural gas as soon as possible. Especially in the European region, we see this kind of challenge. So this is the motivation for our Tech Talk today. And let's start now with two keynotes, and I'd like to welcome on stage Veronica Puah. She is Executive Director of SGInnovate, as we have just seen on the videos. And second one, Chua, our Infineon President of the APEC region. So let's now welcome Veronica Puah for the first keynote. Veronica, it's your stage, please.
Oh, Veronica, you are mute.
Thank you, Hans. Right, sorry about that. Okay. Right, and thank you everyone for joining us today on creating the hydrogen economy. I'm Veronica Puah, as Hans has introduced, the Director for Talent Networking at SGInnovate, and also the Executive Director coming in for the community and brand team. Right, for those who might be new to us, we're a deep tech investor and ecosystem builder backed by the Singapore government. As part of our mission to advance the deep tech economy, we focus on three strategic pillars: investments, talent, and community building. We fund emerging technology startups, particularly those that are heavily rooted in research. And we also develop and curate programs to ensure a sustainable pipeline of deep tech talent to help our startups and the ecosystem grow. Further amplifying this mission are our efforts to grow a deep tech community of founders, researchers, corporates, and investors across our international network. And we are privileged to have innovation leaders like Infineon as part of this community. Today's discussion on hydrogen economy kicks off TechTalk, a new expert panel series on emerging technologies presented in partnership with Infineon. Each month, we will explore an area of emerging technology with a panel of experts. And it is great that we have chosen to start with a topic related to sustainability. Just like Hans, hydrogen economy holds a very big special place for us. Hydrogen holds the key to addressing several pressing environmental challenges, such as improving air quality and strengthening energy security. And if produced by electricity from renewable sources, hydrogen can be critical to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is especially pertinent as more businesses make commitments to net zero targets to drive decarbonization. Yet, these massive advantages can only be secured through the adoption of green hydrogen, which relies on electricity instead of natural gas for its production. Estimates suggest that 99% of the hydrogen produced today is still classified as gray or brown hydrogen that relies heavily on hydrocarbons. Making green hydrogen more commercially viable on a large scale will be just one of the many critical pieces that will need to be addressed to help the hydrogen economy take off. These are just some of the many issues our panel will be examining today. And I hope the insights raised will spark more conversations about tapping this potential source of clean energy. Throughout the discussion, I encourage you to share your questions with us in the Q&A function. Before I hand over the time to Seong to say a few words, I'd like to thank Infineon and our esteemed panel of experts who have joined us from across the globe today. Over to you, Seong.
Thank you, Veronica. Ladies and gentlemen, technological innovation continue to raise the feasibility of generating electricity on a large scale from renewable sources like sun, the wind, and the water. However, to address the climate neutrality and decarbonization goal properly, we must speed up electrification, speed up the scaling, and transition to renewable energy and also green fuels. In this case, green hydrogen generated with wind and solar power can be stored and converted into electrical power when necessary. With large-scale fuel storage, we can broaden electrification to decarbonize energy-intensive applications like ship and truck drivetrain, and also significantly reduce the CO2 emission of heavy industry such as steel and cement production. And we believe that electrification and digitalization is the way forward to make more from less resources, to offer better solution for a sustainable future. And our semiconductor play an important role in the energy transition. They are used to generate electricity, transport them, use them, and store them electricity efficiently. They are the link between the real and the digital world. And to create and grow a hydrogen economy, we need new ideas and innovation. And hydrogen-based application and energy conversion system involve multiple knowledge domains to achieve optimum result. Creativity and collaboration are needed across this domain. And at the same time, the very dynamic nature of emerging market make it more challenging for any company to succeed on its own. So co-innovation with the right partners is critical for success. Co-innovation is also a way forward for contributor to gain early exposure and to increase success rate of new and potentially disruptive application. To drive co-innovation, we engage ecosystem from outreach activity and to co-work with real problem statement with our customer, tech startup, and incubators. In this regard, SGInnovate has been a value partner in our outreach activity for the past 3 years. And again, thank you for hosting TechTalk series. TechTalk will be held in the months leading up to our annual flagship event, October Tech, Asia Pacific. And through this sharing, we are excited about the prospect of discovering topics and partners to co-innovate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica and CS, for setting the stage. Also means I think it's pretty clear why we need this kind of hydrogen, and also still innovation will be one of the key cornerstones to get these kind of targets achieved we all of us have. Let's now go to our panelists. So I'm pretty happy that we could get real experts for hydrogen economy. So not people who are just talking about hydrogen, really these people who are dealing with hydrogen, developing technologies. And we will have now 3 short teasers in order to introduce themselves, also to show what these companies are aiming for. And now I would like to invite Pingyang Lee, Senior Vice President from ENGIE, and please, Pingyang, have your short presentation about ENGIE and also what is your target.
Thanks, Hans. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Pingyang.
Hi, Pingyang. We can't hear you. Could you maybe speak up a bit louder?
Okay, yeah. Can you go to the next slide, please? ENGIE is a French or European origin company, largely in 2 sectors. One is in the electricity generation. We have around 100 gigawatts of installed power capacity and 40,000 kilometers of natural gas transmission pipelines. And hydrogen is considered an ideal link of the electrical energy system and the gas energy system. Green hydrogen is the area ENGIE has a strong interest to develop it to be an asset beyond the renewables and are you able to hear me, or is just sound is weak?
Pingyang, it sounds to be always on and off your voice. Could you closer go to the microphone? I don't know exactly what is the reason for that.
Can you hear me okay now?
Seems to be a little bit better now.
Okay.
Could you go on? That we can hear you?
Yeah. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? NG Hydrogen has been developing hydrogen projects globally. And here is a selection of around 12 projects to illustrate what type of projects NG Hydrogen has been developing globally. You can see here it's covering heavy-duty mobility, hydrogen for mining users, hydrogen for refinery, and hydrogen for ammonia and the methanol production, and also hydrogen for natural gas blending. Next slide, please. Singapore actually is one of the key area NG Hydrogen has been developing R&D projects. In the island, called the Sumatra Island, is the landfill island of Singapore. NG with partners, EDB, NTU, and the National Research Foundation has built a demonstration value chain covering the wind, solar, battery system, electrolyzer, hydrogen refilling station, a fuel cell vehicle to cover the full chain from renewable energy to hydrogen and supply to vehicles on the island. Also in Singapore, NG has been exploring using hydrogen power to power data centers to supply sustainable solutions for data center. I think this is the area attracts a lot of interest in the market, and it's a live question and challenge. Next, please. NG has been also developing hydrogen projects in Australia, thanks to the rich renewable resources of Australia. On this chart, you can see on the Pilbara region, there is a project called the URI. It's NG and the Yara's collaboration trying to develop renewable energy, produce hydrogen to feed into the ammonia plant, and decarbonize the ammonia industry. At the same time, ammonia can be used as a fertilizer. At the same time, could be scaled up to be a fuel. Ammonia as a fuel could decarbonize the shipping industry, power generation industry. Ammonia could be the second generation of the future fuel, replacing the LNG. On the map, we also have another project is in Victoria to produce hydrogen and the blending with natural gas to gradually replace the natural gas in the gas network. Also in Australia, NG has been developing hydrogen for mining users. Basically is to install renewable energy assets and produce hydrogen, and the hydrogen can be used for the mining trucks and also the mining processing process. In the other area, NG has been developing hydrogen hubs. Basically, a hub is a thinking process to group the different uses of hydrogen and dispatch in the area could be served for multiple users. This is a little bit more detail about the Pilbara project. You can see on the red square on the Dampier area is to produce the hydrogen and convert it to ammonia. And the ammonia can use the existing network to supply to the fertilizer industry as a current of taking users of ammonia. But at the same time, ammonia can be used in existing infrastructure and the network, supply as a hydrogen carrier to the broader Asia and beyond, including to Europe, like Germany. So overall, this is give a NG perspective about the hydrogen projects. NG as an integrator of hydrogen projects and the operator. We are interested to partner with startups, with technologies, also with government and asset owner and operators to build the value chain and scale up hydrogen. The hydrogen as of today is a very versatile chemical feedstock and also a versatile fuel, can be used to decarbonize multiple industries, particularly harder to abate industries. I would be happy to take some of the questions after the presentation. Sorry if the sound's not good. Back to you, Hans.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ping Yang, for your presentation, showing also the complete value chain and the complexity we have in the hydrogen economy. So Ping Yang, please check your audio source because it was very often on and off, so it's difficult to follow your whole presentation. So let me welcome now our second panelist, so Deepak Balakrishnan. Deepak is director at Bloom Energy, and now I'm looking forward for your presentation, Deepak. It's your stage.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Deepak, representing Bloom Energy's power conditioning system designs based out of Bangalore. Bloom Energy is a California-based company, mainly focusing both energy servers as well as hydrogen production. Next slide, please. These are the quick facts about the company. We have over 675 megawatts of energy server installations. Because we started our operations with energy server, it's nothing but fuel using natural gas. We are producing energy. And main USPs are reduced carbon emission as well as energy server uptime is almost 99.99% because of the redundancy. Reduction in air pollution and nearly zero water usage for our energy servers. Next slide, please. Actually, this technology was developed for Mars mission to generate hydrogen in Mars. So we made a prototype almost 15 years back to generate hydrogen. We are almost 19 hydrogen patents, having more than 19 patents. And our final goal was to generate hydrogen from our systems. Next slide, please. This slide shows our flexibility of Bloom Energy systems with different class of hydrogens. I think most of you people are aware of color coding of hydrogen. Is nothing. Mainly, we are focusing green hydrogen, which is generated from renewable electricity and solar thermal plants, and using electrolysis process. There is one more version is pink hydrogen, where nothing but where the nuclear power is available plus the steam, so we can reduce the consumption of power for this electrolysis. We do have other two colored hydrogen also, blue and gold. This is nothing but carbon capture. As you know that if you reform the gas like methane, we can generate hydrogen as well as carbon dioxide. By using a carbon capture technology, we can get a hydrogen out of it without carbon emission. If you see the right side of your slide, we are already working with different partners all over the world. SK is one of the partners in Korea where we are going to generate hydrogen for them. Working with Samsung for the shipping application, both energy servers as well as hydrogen. And others are options available with our system like hydrogen microgrids, transport, natural gas grid, steel and industrial feedstock. Next slide, please. See, as you are aware that SOFC is a reversible process. So using natural gas, we can generate electricity, and using the hydrogen, we can generate electricity, and we can create hydrogen using electricity. So it is reversible actually. So value proposition will be much better compared to any other technologies available. So we have, if you consider fuel cell technology for power generation, we have 500+ megawatt deployed installations. And coming to electrolyzer, we are mainly focusing, started shipping units to generate hydrogen, and we are aiming in gigawatt range by 2025. Next slide, please. This is a basic chemistry about conversion. The first fuel cell module, if you consider, it is air and the fuel are fed into two electrodes, cathode and anode, which is going to generate electricity. If you compare the electrolyzer mode, this is just a reversal of it. Air and hydrogen, if you put and connect electricity across the anode and cathode, you are going to generate hydrogen. The equation clearly explains the process. Next slide, please. I think there is a backup slide. Yeah. This clearly shows the economics of hydrogen generation. So our system is normally in 360 kilowatt, which means we are generating hydrogen at a rate of about 46. Sorry. Correct. 46 kilowatt per hydrogen kg of hydrogen. So for the pressure coming out of this units are around less than 0.05 bar. After that, we are going to compress this hydrogen and storing it. Next slide. Once you get the hydrogen during the peak hours or during a solar available time, the same hydrogen we can use in our system to generate back the power. That efficiency is around 52%, which is the highest available in the market. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Deepak, for this presentation. Also showing that we are not talking only about one type of hydrogen in terms of generations of vehicles, also that we have a quite colorful way of pink, blue, and gray, and different kind of hydrogen, and also that this kind of technology is quite mature already. Now, last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce now Tulika Ray. Tulika Ray is co-founder and CEO of Sun Green Hydrogen, and she will give us even more deeper insights on new technologies which could help us to make this hydrogen economy. Tulika, it's your stage. Looking for your presentation.
Thanks, Hans. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great. I'm happy to introduce Sungreen H2, and I'm Tulika. We're unlocking green hydrogen using nanotechnology. As we've already heard throughout the introductions today, hydrogen is really set to be take off and be about 5 times higher market size than what it is today. And it's a 90 million ton, $150 billion market already. However, if you look closer, it's really the low carbon and green hydrogen specifically is part of the segment, that is set to expand explosively even in the next decade. And what is driving this exponential growth? It really is the ability for green hydrogen to essentially decarbonize what is traditionally been a carbon intensive process for producing hydrogen from fossil fuels. So in other words, we can actually take away 2% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions just by switching the way we make hydrogen and using water electrolysis instead of fossil fuels. But one of the really amazing things about green hydrogen then is its myriad uses as a replacement for gray hydrogen in today's existing processes, but also in industrial energy, mobility, power, heating sectors. It's a very versatile fuel. Why isn't green hydrogen already a huge part of our energy mix today? There is a huge amount of net zero emissions commitments coming out of last year's COP26 summit, climate change. The world is on fire, climate change is very much here. And legislation, industrial decarbonization policies globally are really driving the adoption of green. But so far, and I say this keeping in context the rising commodity prices today, but so far green hydrogen has been 5 times more expensive to produce than gray. This changes as soon as natural gas prices start rising and carbon dioxide emissions start getting taxed. So we have to keep that in context. What that leaves is that the next remaining bottleneck to affordable green hydrogen, the last remaining bastion, if you like, are electrolyzer machines themselves. So they're expensive and inefficient across the board. Traditionally, for high performance, the industry has relied on platinum group metals, platinum, iridium, gold, titanium, which is not a scalable concept. And in some cases, materials like iridium, for example, are critically resourced, meaning there's another critical resource bottleneck here to overcome. Where SunGreen H2 comes in is we use nanotechnology-based earth-abundant materials to make very high-performance electrolyzer components. What does that mean? It means electrolyzer manufacturers, when they plug and play drop-in our proprietary electrodes into their electrolyzer designs, can double the amount of hydrogen production from a given size of electrolyzer. What that means is you're instantly reducing your stack capex cost to half. We also reduce the energy consumption, as Deepak was saying earlier, to below 50 kilowatt hours per kg, close to 48. So what that means is that not only is your capex halving, also your opex is reducing 10% and getting better over time. Most importantly, however, we reduce the amount of platinum group metals used for this kind of performance by 30 times, which is pretty breakthrough in the industry. The technology is under patent, and we're working with some of the major electrolyzer manufacturers, both in Western Europe and now looking to grow closer in Asia Pacific. What we really do is material replacement. We use advanced materials that we're dropping into the anodes, the cathodes, the porous transport layers, and the bipolar plates that are used to make the heart, the living, beating heart of the electrolyzer cell. As a result, we believe the technology that we have at SunGreen H2 offers critical scale-up advantages for all types of electrolyzers today: alkaline, PEM, AEM, solid oxide. Well, I'll leave solid oxide, membrane-free, and other types. What that means is that with this type of innovation, you're able to reduce the cost of green hydrogen across the board. And when we bring down the cost of electrolysis-based green hydrogen in the distributed hydrogen stack, what you're doing is essentially making low-cost green hydrogen available for all sorts of industrial, power, mobility applications, helping to drive deep decarbonization in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Tulika. Specifically also to show what are the challenges now we have still with the green hydrogen. As you said, means it's 5 times more expensive than with a cheap gas. We have to say we had, means gas prices are changing now dramatically, and this will also change the picture, I guess, now. So before we go into the panel discussion, and you have seen now 3 interesting presentations showing the complexity of hydrogen economy, I would like to invite you to post also your question during the session. I see it on my screen, so I will also incorporate your question into the discussion with a panelist. Let's start now. I would like to start with a simple question first with you, Deepak. You showed in your slide that we are not talking only about one type of green or of hydrogen. So everybody's talking about green hydrogen, but we have also blue, gray as the traditional one, yellow and pink. What do you think in terms of local and global perspective? I guess it's not always a single picture. How green hydrogen will develop over time, as today more than 90% is gray. What is your expectation in 2030, Deepak? What is your expectation projection? How much will be when changed from gray? And we have seen the numbers, how it's growing.
Actually, everybody is concentrating basically on the green hydrogen. But if you see the next type of hydrogen, which is generated using nuclear power plants, where the base power is always fixed. Suppose there is a drop in power, the extra energy they normally dump into resistors and heat it. So if you use that type of energy, available energy, plus the steam available with the nuclear power plant, it is going to become a very good value proposition for the consumers. And other type is concerned, I mentioned about the carbon capture. See, carbon capture means you are going to get a green hydrogen without any carbon emission, because we are consuming that carbon dioxide and use it for other industrial purposes. So there is also, we have a equally good proposition to get a cost-effective hydrogen out.
Okay, that means in other words, we have to look into a value chain, which kind of energy we are using in order to generate hydrogen. And it's not only electricity, it's also other sources of energy we could use.
Correct. Other sources means natural gas, we can use it. Plus biogas. Biogas is the best option available here because you are getting it free actually. And we are saving the environment by consuming that biogas without any carbon emission.
Mm-hmm. Pinyang, if I see now your presentation, you were showing Australia as one place where we could generate. Then we probably talk more about the green hydrogen. So what is your view on this kind of question?
Yeah, so the green hydrogen itself would be copy-paste or replicate the same success the wind and the solar has done over the last 15 years. Is largely put a lot of different big, small, different industries can do renewable-based green hydrogen. So that would be momentum to accelerate the hydrogen economy. Today, hydrogen largely is a chemical feedstock. It's not used as a fuel. The fuel industry is enormous compared to currently hydrogen used largely for refinery, for fertilizer, and for methanol. As Veronica explained earlier, I think hydrogen increase 5 times, and that's increasing is largely from fuel and a part of hydrogen to decarbonize the fuel. To be hundreds of billions of business over, would say, within a decade, because we observed this from renewable and wind. Currently, the technology, the existing technology, has all the mature solutions. We see the alkaline and the perm largely to scale it up from medium-sized users to global usage, and we welcome also additional R&D breakthrough with other technology coming in. Mm-hmm. There is also a solution to splitting the natural gas to be graphite and hydrogen, and also through the
You're breaking off now. Okay, I didn't get your last sentence anymore. But let me add one more question on this one. Means Pinyang, you showed also on your map Australia as one source for your URI project. What does it mean for the Asian regions? Do you need then collaboration and network of places where hydrogen is produced, or how is your vision? How Asia, for example, is an important location with many people have to organize their hydrogen economy, or do they produce it locally?
Yeah, hydrogen would produced locally, and the dam becomes a major fuel to supply from the renewable surplus countries like Australia to renewable energy deficit countries such as Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and including Singapore. Short term, it could be used hydrogen for very local users because the volume is constrained, and at the same time can replace some of the higher value usage cases, such as to replace diesel. Over a long period, when hydrogen becomes more accessible, both on the volume by technology and the cost by scaling up and the cost reduction, then it becomes a mainstream fuel, can be exported from Australia, Chile, Middle East, to other locations including Europe, North Asia, and the USA. So it's a little bit similar towards today's LNG. It's a huge industry, and it's really transport a clean fuel. In the future, will be transport the sun and the wind from one country to another.
Mm-hmm. I guess we will revisit also this kind of transportation topic in a minute again. Let me incorporate one question which comes already on the Q&A side. So Bernhard Lee is asking that Singapore has signed a collaboration agreement with ARENA, or Australian Renewable Energy Agency. So the question was if you can give here or share more information how this program is, let's say, continuing, or what is happening there. I don't know, Ping Yang, can you take this question?
Yeah, ARENA is the government grant provider to stimulate new technologies. Hydrogen is one of the top 3 or top 5 sectors they want to support. They have multiple programs ongoing, including the 2 energy projects got in total 75 million Australian dollars to support our 2 projects in Australia. ARENA signed a series of collaboration agreements, including with Singapore, with Chile, with Germany, Japan. I think Singapore also signed a collaboration agreement with Chile to scale up in hydrogen. The first step, I think, is in the area of produce some programs. The Australian front is they will allocate a certain envelope of funds, call for projects. The active ones as of now for international projects is largely with Germany. For the Singapore front, I believe, I don't know the details, I believe there will be a program to be set up. Particularly, Singapore is well located. It could become a hydrogen trading hub. In the trading hub space, that's including the trading program itself, the protocols of transaction, the certain definition of what is green, what is pink, what is blue. Therefore, leave the customer to choose. At the same time, as you mentioned earlier, hydrogen transportation, hydrogen production, hydrogen users has quite a lot of technology development. In this space, it will require government to companies collaboration to do some R&D to create this value chain. There would be a lot of R&D possibility, and the different size of the companies to collaborate, complete a value chain and scale it up.
Okay, thank you. Let's get also Tulika into our round here. Tulika, you showed also that you are developing in a very much improved technology to get the costs down here. So before we go into the technology itself here, what is your view in terms of productions, specifically also in the context in terms of Europe, Asia, and other places here? Do we see here equal developments and new technologies, or are certain countries or certain applications, for example, also driving this kind of technology further? What is your view on this one?
Sure. I mean, I think we have to keep one thing in context, right? The entire sales of electrolyzers in 2020 was 200 megawatts last year. This was risen to 0.5 gigawatt. The stated and legislated European target in the EU is 40 gigawatts for internal installation of electrolyzers, 40 gigawatts of import, and this was before the recent announcement earlier this month. 80 gigawatts scaling up from 0.5 gigawatt last year in EU alone. My home country, I'm originally from India, has recently announced a target half the size of EU, another 40 gigawatts by 2030. That's a 120 gigawatt market between EU and India alone. And then let's add to it Australia, Let's add to it the consumption and the demand coming from Japan, South Korea. Let's talk about the US and Canada as well, big hubs for green hydrogen production as well. So we have to think about the fact that this is a market that is sized to grow exponentially. And most of the collaboration, as Ping Yang was outlining earlier, is because without collaboration and partnerships, this kind of scale cannot be achieved in the timeline envisioned. To your point about where we see the growth happening, it will initially to 2025 really be led by electrolyzer installations in Europe, and then followed by Asia Pacific region, where very large hubs for electrolyzer-based green hydrogen are springing up, followed by rest of world. So this is kind of where the installation or the installed capacity is going. Within technologies, I think also as Ping Yang mentioned, no two regions of the world are made equal. Some are more or less resource oriented, depending on the wind or the solar or the nuclear or the geothermal or the hydro or the other type of resource that is available locally in that region. This will drive the adoption of those types of technologies, first of all, to power up the electrolyzer if it's green hydrogen. And if it's natural gas and carbon capture and sequestration, it will drive blue hydrogen. So much of the way we adopt hydrogen is going to be driven by carbon dioxide taxation and how governments incentivize whether or not we take into account, natural gas plus CCS or not. So ultimately, it's also about where are the resources, who is poised best to develop them, and how we can scale up the technologies to deliver this kind of massive scale in as short a time as possible to ultimately benefit all the globe, right, in terms of decarbonization. So I think that's the overall broad picture. Within electrolysis, I can tell you that alkaline electrolyzers have been around for 100 years. So this is a very mature technology. And proton exchange membrane electrolyzers, a newer type of technology, 20 years old, is completely commercialized at this stage. And both technologies have their pros and cons in terms of efficiency as well as in terms of cost, which is what the innovation needs of the hour are. And that's what most of the technology innovation that you'll see is catering to in one form or the other. Even the emerging technologies like Deepak was mentioning and explaining about solid oxide, as well as there are other types of electrolyzers coming out, anion exchange membrane-free electrolyzers, they're all trying to really essentially fill the gaps in the incumbent technologies that are available today. What's going to be the technology that rules in the future? We'll see the one that commercializes the fastest. But one of the very interesting things that's happening is green hydrogen is being developed on a very use case basis. In other words, we see Europe, for example, leading the way. And projects announced in Canada as well, for example, in North America, for very end-use oriented, green steel, green ammonia-based type of applications using hybrid form of electrolyzers. In other words, not just sticking to one technology, but taking like an alkaline and a PEM electrolyzer and perhaps even chucking in a solid oxide in there just to see, what the overall sort of, hybridization produces in terms of green hydrogen output. So I think those are the kinds of like interesting technology, improvisation, and improvement works that are happening now, and we'll see in the next decade and really less than a decade out to 2025 and 2030, those technologies that seem to be, poised for commercializing faster than others. It'll be a mix of all, I think.
Okay, I think you brought it down to the point actually, and I think at the end of the day we are talking about cost. And means the cheap natural gas was, as far as I learned, it's generating a price for 1 kg hydrogen in the range of $1.3. So from that point, it's damn cheap. Let's put it this way. This is now changing quite dramatically, and I can feel it by myself in my heating system here. What are the prices? So it has tripled the prices now for natural gas, and I guess this will not change quite dramatically. So therefore, I guess the gap which we are seeing today will go down, and you also showed some other factors coming in. So you said on the one hand side technology, and what is SunGreen here providing as a breakthrough in order to do it? And what do you think, what would be, let's call it also physical limit you see in terms of cost, what we can achieve with electrolyzers? Because electrolyzing, as I said, is not a completely new technology. This has been done for many decades already, but now we have to get it really into mass production as a backbone for our industries.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to talk about cost. So most of the world's electrolyzers up until date, until the recent announcements of factory automations globally, have been hand assembled, by the way, manually assembled by highly skilled labor. So we have to think about, as the industry scales up, there is a huge amount of learning to come down on the manufacturing scale. These are electrolyzer manufacturing is now getting automated. People are putting in gigawatt factories now, even as we speak. What that means is that those economies of scale and efficiencies that we saw in the wind and solar business, for example, and so many other manufacturing plays earlier, are yet to be experienced by the electrolyzer industry. So I think we can state with confidence that mass scale manufacturing, which is only now becoming a reality in the electrolysis space, is going to bring down costs. On the other hand, we have to think about efficiency as well. So there's two things you need to really make cheap green hydrogen: cheap renewable electricity and cheap electrolyzers. So we will bring down electrolyzers in cost with manufacturing efficiencies of scale, with innovations that are happening in the space right now. That will take care of the capex. In terms of OpEx, 91% of the world's electricity markets today, the newest and cheapest form of new generation is wind or solar. 91% of the world's electricity markets. So it's to be argued that green energy or renewable energy is already one of the lowest cost forms of energy are going to be available in the future. So that's that taken care of. And when we talk about OpEx, we talk about something Deepak also referred to. How many kilowatt hours of electricity do you consume to produce 1 kg of hydrogen? And for this, the technology is here now to take it down, significantly compared to what has been the state of the art to date. So in other words, we've had something like 55 to 57 kilowatt hours per kg being the norm to date. Already both Deepak and I have been talking about below 50 kilowatt hours per kg today. There are membrane-free electrolyzers and other forms of innovative technology and electrolyzers that are seeking to bring this down even further. So, by marrying up different forms of energy and really optimizing either your heat or your source of renewable electricity. By the way, you can use curtailed electricity. One of the biggest factors around intermittency and renewables is curtailment, where our grids, which are 100-year-old infrastructure, cannot always absorb all this renewable electricity. You've also got the zero cost form of electricity that can be used to, instead of wasting or wheeling, you can simply use it to, store hydrogen and then use that long term. So there's so many different ways to optimize for cost. And depending on the location, depending on the resourcing available, depending on the technology chosen, you can optimize your levelized cost of hydrogen production to go down. Your point was natural gas, $1 per kg of gray hydrogen production cost. If you add carbon capture and sequestration on top of that, it's about $2.5 per kg production cost. With green hydrogen, it has traditionally been about $5 to $8 per kg, and this is coming down. We see $3 per kg within reach for 2025, and we see $1 per kg within reach for 2030, even earlier, actually, to be honest, depending on which part of the world you're in. So again, if you're in the Middle East, if you're in Australia, and in certain spots, hotspots where there are cheap renewables, high natural gas prices, high carbon dioxide prices, and good electrolysis technology, you're really on a pathway to realizing $1 per kg, very competitive with gray. And to your point, at the moment, gray is actually more expensive than green. So, underlying commodity price risk in fossil fuel-based hydrogen production cannot be ignored.
Okay, Tulika, that was, I think, quite important now that we see here were several factors. And I guess OpEx you mentioned, I guess we will come to that in a minute again. This is one of very much the defining factor, but you mentioned also the CO2 ton price. So from that point, I just watched on TV, what is the price for CO2? In Europe, it's at the moment 78 euro per ton. In South Korea, for example, it's only 17. So I guess we see also here a factor which could influence very strongly the calculation. So how, Deepak, how do you see it from your point of view? Is if you sell it to Korea, is this less competitive when you would sell it, for example, to Europe, your systems?
Yeah, basically, we moved to Korea mainly because there is no gas available. So, and they are shutting down nuclear plants. So they are basically concentrating on hydrogen economy to going forward. So we thought that's an ideal place to begin with. Plus our partners are helping us to establish the business in South Korea.
Okay, so it's really a combination of different driving factors that different countries will decide if this is already competitive or not.
Yeah.
Tulika has basically mentioned also the price of generating electricity to produce green hydrogen. Pinyang, if I look into your Europe project, what do you see as a potential? What would be then your calculation from the Europe project in terms of generating hydrogen? What would be then the cost target? We heard from Tulika it could be around $3 or even a little bit less. What do you think from your perspective from Australia, where I guess sunshine is not a big problem? We could produce it at a certain, I would say, a very low cost if you use photovoltaic or even wind in this area. What do you think?
Yeah, Tulika was right. Today, the hydrogen production cost is $5-6 per kg for green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is just starting. 200-300 megawatts is pretty much manual, and the most of the industry, including construction, is the first time to do it. We estimate similar to like the offshore wind. After the first project, the second project, they can already reduce the cost by 50%. This is the learning, and Tulika was also mentioned. The physical bottom is 42 to 45 kilowatt hour of electricity. If we add in the auxiliaries and the other systems, let's say 55. If you use currently in Australia 3 to 4 cents US dollars per kg of hydrogen, the physical bottom line is 1.5 US dollar per kg of hydrogen. Here we have not accounted in OEM, depreciation of the fixed assets. Those things adding on is long term would be able to meet the Australian government target is $2 under $2. That's the target. For importation countries such as in Japan, the target is $3. Basically adding another $1 for conversion and the transportation. So that's the so-called end game to be really competitive. From today, the industry is in the making. Towards to competitive industry, there's a long way to go, and those journey is multiple technology competition race, and that's the learning, that's the opportunity for innovative companies, for R&D, for collaboration globally. Australia, as of today, the strongest advantage of Australia is really a collaborative approach, coordinating with government agencies, with academia, university, R&D institutions. There is also new manufacturing capabilities being installed in Australia. Along the way, there would be maybe opportunity for other countries to come in, and then some other countries will take it over. It's really a global collaboration. We went through in the solar and the wind. Was started in Europe, then including going to some of the wind capability production in India. Even in Singapore today, there is still a small production capability of PV industry. Then went to Japan, Korea, and China made a big push. Hydrogen would likely to be through the similar process. It's just about to taking off. The solar and the wind industry started really when Germany put in place the feed-in tariff, and that's accelerated this industry. Hydrogen is waiting for that moment. I think that moment is really coming with multiple indications. What's happening currently in Europe? The European Commission said it will increase 4 times the policy target. The border tax just put in place. Going forward, the trade partners such as Singapore is very sensitive to that because the European put the border tax, then Singapore needed to follow those policy catch up to be competitive or be compliant to those importation countries. So putting all those few items together today is expensive. The bottom line, technology is already told us it could be competitive. Therefore, it's a race. Which company, which industry, which country would be able to accelerate, they would win a space in the industry has a huge potential.
Okay, that's good to summarize from that angle. Penyang means one side we have a production, but on the other side we need also to properly transport the hydrogen to different places here. How do you see that here? Means we have today ships who can transport LNG, or means natural gas, or we in Europe have our pipelines. Can we use this kind of infrastructure also for hydrogen, or do we need to rebuild this?
Yeah, for the transportation, the promising carriers are ammonia, methanol, liquid hydrogen, and some other liquid organic hydrogen carrier. It's still, again, it's really a race. We don't know which one will win, but there will be technology shift. For the infrastructure, the pipeline, some of that can be used directly, some of that need internal coating or replacement. In the downstream users, like the gas turbine, fuel cell, all those need to be also change some of the parts, like combustion chambers, and the fuel cell industry, like TechTalk has been saying, is also in development. So there would be a lot of technology development. It's not something completely new, but needed to be scaled up and deployed.
Okay. It shows that it's quite complex topic and still in many areas where we need innovation. Tulika, as you are representing also this kind of technology, as we are getting close to the end and we have tons of questions also by the auditorium, I think it's an interesting topic and it's reflecting it. What do you see also as physical limits? Because Deepak has shown he needs 46 kilowatt per 1 kg hydrogen. Is there something which we can expect as technology breakthrough? And we as semiconductor people means we can also contribute to make it even more efficient. Do you see here any technology from semiconductor side to make these processes even cheaper?
Yes, the answer is yes. But in general, I will start by saying that there is a thermodynamic limit, right? The physical limit is 39 kilowatt hours. This is the minimum energy that you need for water splitting. Nobody can actually, you can get around these kinds of things with, different types of architectures for electrolyzers, more new innovative ways to do the water splitting. And there's a lot of innovation work and research work that's happening in cell architecture, electrode architecture, to cell architecture, to stack architecture, to the electrolyzer itself and its marriage with the stack on the one hand and the balance of plant on the other hand. So at various levels, there's more innovation, breakthroughs that are forthcoming. Sungreen H2 ourselves, for example, we work at the electrode architecture level. And what we do is we really drop in, it's a plug and play tech, we drop in electrodes. We literally just drop in electrodes into existing electrolyzer designs. And the idea is to produce more current density from a given size of electrode. And why is that important? Because current density is exactly related to hydrogen production. So these are the kinds of things that, I think innovation is unlocking more frontiers in making electrolysis more efficient and ultimately lowering the cost of the green hydrogen produced. And I say this not just for electrolysis, but we have to remember hydrogen is a 90 million ton market to begin with. Many of the technologies for storing it and transporting it have been around for a while. As the industry scales up and we look to upsize the infrastructure behind this, there are a number of solutions. And as Penyang said, we don't know which one's going to win. Likely there's going to be a combination in future of some of the more competitive technologies that'll win out, that we'll see. So ultimately, I think these are not beyond the reach of let's say, given what we have seen and how we have decarbonized 25% of our carbon dioxide emissions in the world in the last 15 to 20 years with renewable electricity and renewable electrification, there is no reason to believe that for the 75% of the carbon dioxide emissions problem, which is being addressed by hydrogen, amongst other technologies, that those breakthroughs will not emerge in the coming 5 to 10 years and beyond. So I'll probably pause it at that in case anybody else wants to jump in.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are at the end of in terms of timing. So I want to thank you, Tulika and Deepak and Pinyang, for this kind of very interesting discussion, showing the complexity, showing also the challenges. And I want to say a big thanks for you and all of these insights. And I hope that you as auditorium enjoyed also this kind of discussion. I saw it also in some questions where you would like to have some more information, and let's see how we can also share this kind of thing. Thank you again. And with that, I would like to also close this Tech Talk of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hans. Thank you as well to all our speakers today for the insightful and knowledgeable discussion and the presentations as well. I think I can speak on SGInnovate's behalf to say that it was a pleasure to have a group of star-studded speakers like yourself here today sharing your insights on such an important topic. A special thanks to the team at Infineon as well for your help with putting this event together. Julia, Rohit, Seong, and David, as you may know, this is the first of our Tech Talk series that SGInnovate will be hosting with Infineon. So do take a look out for our next session in May. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover all your questions due to the time constraints, but I also very much like to thank our audience today for engaging with us and sending in your questions. Do also take note that we'll be sending out a post-event email with all the important information you may need, including a recording for this webinar, so do keep an eye out for that. And with that, we have come to the end of our webinar today. Thank you all for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. And on behalf of SGInnovate and Infineon, I would like to wish you all a great week ahead, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next event. Bye. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.